Hi, I'm Kim Coco. Today's 60-minute yin class is going to be on opening up the sides of the body. So we're going to lengthen and open up around the rib cage as well as all down the lateral edge of the body. And then we are going to look into taking that length into some twists. So we're going to increase that energetic flow through the spine, take out the stagnant blood within the organs, get rid of it, open up and allow for some new reoxygenated blood to get into those internal organs. And then we're going to allow any digestive issues to kind of subside and use the twist as a way to get into a more meditative, internal, calm state. So if any of that applies to you or sounds like a good idea, this is the class for you. I recommend having a block, a blanket, and a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, just grab a couple extra blankets or towels because you can use that as well. And then to start off today, we're going to go ahead and come onto your back. So set your props aside, make your way to Shavasana. And you can take any leg position that feels good. So maybe you want legs straight. You can bend the knees and take the soles of the feet together. You can always bend the knees and have the soles of the feet on the floor to support your low back. But wherever your legs decide to land, go ahead and take both hands to the ribs. The palms of the hands can rest half above the rib cage and half on the lower part of the belly. So roughly the middle finger is at the lowest rib here. And then let your elbows rest down into the floor. Let the back of your head rest heavy on the floor. And then start to become aware of the breath as it moves in and out of the body, and how as that breath comes in and out, it affects the surface of your hands on your torso. And as you begin to let the body get heavier, can you simply begin to turn up the volume of your breath? Doing so in such a way that the volume increases incrementally. But the head and the back can be heavy still. As you begin to reach more of a full capacity of your breath, notice how the ribs expand up into your hands, even out to the side slightly, and even the back of the ribs pressing lightly into your mat. Every exhale, letting the hands drop down heavier on your torso as the body rests more supported on your mat. And take the next minute here to focus solely on the breath and how it affects the state of your torso, the sensations there at the palms of your hands, your fingertips, and your back as it's in contact with your mat. Allow an inward smile to come across your lips in appreciation for this time you've carved out for yourself already, and bringing in any other specific intention you have for this time today. On your next inhale, fill up the breath deeply and hold the breath at the top. Expand out to the sides, the back, and the front underneath your hands. Exhale it out through the mouth. Use your inhale and slowly begin to straighten your legs out in front of you like you would be in Supta Tadasana. So feet are hip distance apart, all 10 toes point up towards the ceiling. You might even point and flex the feet for a moment. You can always place a roll or a bolster or a blanket underneath your knees if you feel tightness in your low back already. But otherwise, from here, we're going to walk your feet over to the lower edge of your left side edge of your mat. And then, so you have this nice long lateral edge on the right side of the body. And you can stay here if you want, or you can slowly begin to take this banana pose with your body, moving the torso to the upper left side of your mat. And then you can take the arms out to the side in a T position. You can bend the elbows. You might even reach the hands back for opposite elbows to create a little pillow or a cushion for your head. Make sure we're even on our sides today, so we're going to have our 5 minutes starting now. So if you are already here and feeling an intense stretch on the right side of the body, you might choose to back out some, because as we're going to be here, the stretch will increase. And so ideally you want to create a nice safe place in which the body can open and relax and find more length. So if you start at your max, it's going to be really hard to sustain. And really, in fact, the body will kind of close down into a protective mechanism. So find your 50 to 70%, whatever arm position feels good. Just make sure that the right side of the hip and the right side of the shoulder start to drop down to the floor. The back of the head resting into your forearms with the floor, or even a blanket if you need a cushion. And find that even rhythm of breath you started with just a few moments ago. And use the breath as a way to move into a meditative state for your practice, away from the habitual thought patterns of the mind. And using this conscious breath to spread an open space between the ribs on the right side, all the way down to the IT band on the right side of the legs. If I didn't mention so already, you're welcome to cross the right foot over the left to intensify the stretch. But just make sure you can sustain that if you choose the option. And then this is it. We're not going to be moving from here. So maybe take this time to do a mental checklist, starting at the feet, working your way up the legs, allowing each segment of the body to release just a bit more with every exhale. So the hips and the torso and the shoulder blades and the arms and the head can all melt down into the floor. And then settle into your breath. If your mind wanders, simply bring it back to that rhythm of breath. Take about 3 more slow rounds of breath on this side. And then after those 3 rounds, slowly begin to unwind your arms if you had a bind. Come back to neutral with your spine, uncross your legs. Pause in Shavasana for a moment, noticing any new sensations, right to left, front to back. And then when you're ready, re-extend the legs into Supta Tadasana, activating through the heels, tucking the tailbone toward the heels, and then walking your feet up and over to the right lower corner of your mat. Noticing the left hip dropping down and anchoring to the floor, and then maybe start to scoot your torso up and over to the right as well. Again, any arm positions apply, arms down by your side, out at a T position, maybe even bend the elbows, or reach for opposite elbows, but put the opposite forearm on top this time. One might feel more comfortable than the other. And then just enjoy the difference right to left, because there will be one. For some of you, it'll be more subtle than others. But start with your attention to the breath. Noticing the breath going down to the lowest ribs and all the way up underneath the armpit. And then be aware if you're trying to help the breath in any way. So soften the jaw, let the head rest back heavier. Let the heels rest heavier into the floor. And scanning your body from the feet all the way up to the crown of the head, incrementally dropping your body down more heavily onto your mat with every exhale. Notice the space here on the whole lateral line of the body. It's often associated with welcoming the changes in our lives. So how might you settle in here with the breath, whether it's simply acknowledging this change in posture, this change in pace from the busyness of life to the stillness on the mat. Might even be a specific area of your life in which a transition is taking place and you want to dedicate this time here to that life state or circumstance. The courage to welcome and embrace this change. Got just over a minute here, so settle in, find some stillness, and allow the breath to be the only movement in the body. Take your next inhale to fill up deeply. Exhale fully. The end of the out breath, slowly begin to unwind. Take pause in Shavasana for a moment. And then when you're ready, slowly begin to bend the knees, place the soles of the feet on the floor for a moment, maybe even just hug the knees in right away. And you might rock a little side to side, you might massage out the low back, you might roll the ankles around in some circles. You might even choose to roll the knees around in a few circles, whether you're holding on to the kneecaps or letting go. Just a nice little counterbalance. Maybe even take a happy baby pose, letting the low back drop toward the floor. From here, go ahead and slowly roll over to one side or rock your way up to a seat. From here, we're going to go ahead and grab your props, and we're going to take deer pose to start. So, actually, I'm going to take a little modification on deer to get into the side body. So there are many different ways to do the same thing. But what we're going to do is we're going to take your blanket stacked, maybe two stacked or a bolster, and take it parallel to the long edge of your mat. This is where your block might come in handy to create a little pillow for your head and also a blanket for on top of the block. What we're going to do is we're going to come onto your left hip first. And to make it easier, you can stack the right knee on top of the left. If you want to make it more challenging in deer pose to get that internal and external rotation evenly of the hips, you can go ahead and have a nice square 90-degree angle at your kneecaps with the hips. But again, we're going to get into the side body here as well, so be less concerned about the hips and more concerned about the length on this left side here. So we're actually going to take the hands and lengthen your left torso over your bolster or your blanket so that the left arm can rest on top. And then again, this is where your blanket or blocks or whatever you have to create a pillow for yourself will come in handy. We're going to reach that right arm up to the ceiling, turn the palm to face the wall overhead or the space overhead, and then we're going to go ahead and drop that right arm over the ear and let the right bicep rest on the ear. If that's too much, then you can rest the right arm on top of your right thigh. And then we're going to be here for 5 minutes. So settle in. Now notice how just by having the bolster underneath the side of the body, you're creating this natural side bend. So again, this first 30 to 60 seconds or so can be to kind of fidget and find a sense of balance. And ideally want to rest right on that side seam of your shirt, right side of the the left side of the body, I'm sorry. And then, so you might even roll a little forward or a little back of that midline and find a nice even place to rest. And then let your head get heavier. You might even lift and shift the left hip slightly away from the bolster so that we keep the length on the left side of the body. And now you can notice how the breath moves here with this prop right underneath the left side rib. So when you breathe, you can actually press down into the bolster with your ribs as you inhale and feel the leg expand up toward the ceiling on the right side of the body. Every time you exhale, feeling the body get heavier still. Notice if you're harboring any tension at the hips. And then can you soften at the fingertips, the toes, the jaw? Continue with a nice even breath in and out through the nose. Can you soften anywhere in the body, even if it's that left hip resting again? Allowing the left shoulder blade to drop down toward the floor, left arm to drop into the floor. Right bicep to rest a little more heavily on your head. Aware of the space in the body, the space in the mind, the space you're creating for positive change on the cellular level, the energetic level, spiritual level. Can you take your next minute here and breathe a little more deeply, a little more consciously? As you inhale, go ahead and reach the right arm up toward the ceiling. Draw the right shoulder blade more toward your spine, and then we're going to open up the right shoulder, the right arm out into a T position. Now, you might have to lift and shift your torso just slightly. Your right arm may or may not reach the floor, and this is where if you have an extra pillow or props, you can actually support this right arm more in space, so it's not dangling there. But opening up into a twist, a nice open twist. And now you're actually rolling more onto the back side of the thoracic spine, allowing both shoulder blades to come and be supported by your bolster. Rolling onto the back of the head versus the left side of the head. Make sure your legs are in any position that feels comfortable. So there's no tweaking on the low back or the knees. Maybe let go and breathe out through the mouth. If there's any tension through the nose or the jaw. But can you settle in a little more deeply? Can you allow every increment of a breath to be conscious? And then without having to press your right knee more toward the floor, feel it lengthen out away from the hip. So it's not necessarily pressing down, but it's just moving away in space from that right hip bone. So you feel length across the whole right side. Letting the back of the body get heavier. Embracing your courage here with a wide open heart to approach these transitions in your practice and in your life. Trying to hold your body up in any way, shape, or form. Let it go for this next minute here. See if you can take 3 more slow, perhaps deeper rounds of breath. As you inhale next, go ahead and reach that right arm straight up towards the ceiling. Go ahead and replace it over on the left side of your body and start to press your way back up to a seat. Keep your legs as they are, and all we're going to do is move from an open twist to a closed one. So from here, move your props out of the way. Turn your blankets or your bolster now the long way on your mat, so the bolster is still an inch or two in front of your hip on the left side. You can add more blankets to bring the surface up to you to make the twist more comfortable. But then from here, we're going to take one hand on either side of your bolster or your blanket stack, and then start to twist and turn your belly button and your heart over that bolster and slowly begin to lengthen out over. You might just want to create a little extra pillow for your head if that's going to be more comfortable. And now notice here how things change. If you're incredibly flexible, you might want to turn your head and look over the opposite shoulder. But otherwise, keep your left ear on the blanket or on your pillow. Feel the right hip stack on top of the left. Feel the shoulder blades move apart from one another this time as gravity pulls your arm bones to the ground, your elbows to the floor. Allowing the back side of the body to lengthen here in this twist. And then notice the difference in how you breathe as a result of the change in type of twist. It's most likely a little more constricted here, so can you be conscious of and mindful of the rhythm of breath? Lengthening the inhale still, slowing down the out breath. Going from that wisdom of knowing when to be open and bold and courageous, like we did in our open twist, and then when to let go and when to find ease and when to back off as we turn into this more inward, soft, twisted, supported deer pose. And even in letting go here, that includes the body dropping toward the floor, as with many of our other reclined postures. Breathe here for the last minute. Maybe even soften that pause before you breathe in every time. Aware of the time of silence and stillness before the actions take place or the words are spoken. Go ahead and take your next breath in. Let it all out. Use the following in-breath to make your way back up. Move your props out of the way. And come onto your back once again, pausing in Shavasana. Just noticing the difference right to left. Enjoying how just a few movements can make a nice altering change to the physical body and even to the state of your mind. Sure to let go of any rhythm of breath entirely, letting the body breathe itself. Slowly begin to make your way back up to a seat. Maybe stretch long with your body first. Maybe you hug your knees into your chest. We're going to do the second side. So same rules apply, same sequence applies. Start with your bolster parallel to the short edge of your mat. Grab your pillows or your blanket and your block. And give yourself a nice cushion here. Set your legs up however it's going to feel good to you. So whether you have a more 90-degree angle at the knees or you have one leg stacked on top of the other, lift and shift that right hip underneath you a little bit more. And then take your body and lengthen it as far over the bolster as you can, allowing that right arm to come out at shoulder height. And then when you get there, reach the left arm straight up to the ceiling, flip the palm overhead, and then slowly drape that left arm up over the left ear. Second side, setting yourself up. And again, one side might feel very different. I get tighter on my left side, so this personally is more intense for me, which means I might have to bend my arm slightly different. I might have to prop my head up a little higher. Make accommodations as you need to support your own body type and your own frame. If the bolster seems too big, you might even take blankets instead and just stack two on top of each other. It'll also decrease the intensity of the stretch, which might feel nice. But again, notice if you're starting to lean back, like we take our open twist, or leaning forward more towards the closed twist, and find something perfectly in between where you're right on the right side of the body there. The whole left seam of your shirt is pointing up towards the ceiling. And as you start to find your position where you find a sense of ease, you feel a little more comfortable, deepen your breath. Sequentially make your body heavier. And then breathe into the sensations you feel on this second side.
See if you can feel the right hip underneath the left. And a little more space created between each rib on this left side with your breath. Letting the right ear get heavier, the right side of your head get heavier. And the right side of the torso get heavier. So that as the breath presses into your bolster, that left side can expand and lengthen. Again, notice where this confidence in making your decisions comes in really handy. Those times in your life where you've known exactly what to do and taken action on those intuitions. But let this heaviness of the body represent the ease in making those decisions. So there wasn't a sense of effort, but just a sense of knowing. Allowing every time that happens to become a spotlight on what's possible. So take 3 more rounds of breath on this side. As you inhale next, reach the left arm back up toward the ceiling. Drop the left shoulder blade more toward the spine and slowly begin to rotate and open. As you roll onto the back of your head, you might need to move your pillow over to support your head and neck differently. And again, if the left arm is dangling in air and that is uncomfortable, find something to prop it up with. As you roll onto the back side of the body, allowing the more back side of the body to be supported by your bolster here. Let your eyes get heavier behind your closed eyelids. The tongue begin to rest at the bottom of your mouth. And rest in the comfort of this wide open heart, ready to give and receive love. Be aware of where your mind goes as your body remains still. Can you still amplify the breath? Can you focus on an area of appreciation? Can you allow the sensations in the body to become more vivid and bright? If you feel any tension on that left knee, if it's in space, you can prop that one up as well. But see if you can feel the left femur extending out away from the pelvis. Nice long line of energy down both sides of the torso. Get heavier still with the back of your head. Back of your left shoulder. The edges of your feet. Go ahead and take about 3 more rounds of breath here. After those 3 rounds, take that left arm, reach it up toward the ceiling. Place it back on the right side of the body. Press yourself back up to partial seat. Flip your bolster around as you need to. Set up your additional props as you need to. Again, this side might be very different, so be okay with that. Might not look exactly like your first side, and that's fine. But otherwise, shift your right hip out away from the bolster. Take one hand each side of the bolster. And slowly begin to lengthen your belly button away from the pelvis, your spine all the way out long, across your bolster. And your 5 minutes starts now. So turn your head and rest your right ear on the blanket or bolster. Or turn your head to the other side. As you let the arms drape on either side of the bolster, let them literally drape there. Let them get heavy. There's a lot of weight when you just drop your arms toward the floor. That can help create some space around the shoulder complex. Again, tuning inward. This more introspective version of the twist, where the breath might become a little more confined and require your attention to stay deep. Using this time as a way to memorize the stillness, memorize the steadiness of your internal heartbeat, mindset, so that you know and you can hear the messages of when to act. you notice you need to readjust, do so in the next few moments, whether it's going maybe a little bit deeper or just simply adjusting your torso on your props or your spine in space so that you can create the sense of stillness for the entire body for this last segment of your twist. You can stay connected to your center as you twist around it. You've got 3 more rounds of breath on this side. As you finish those 3 rounds of breath, slowly begin to make your way out of your twist. And this time, set your bolster out in front of you and go ahead and take child's pose. So a more neutral position here. And as you roll yourself up to sit on your heels for a moment, set your blanket aside. We'll go ahead and come onto hands and knees with the bolster right in front of you. Take the forearms onto the bolster so the elbows are underneath the shoulders. You can take the palms together and then make sure the hips are over the knees and slowly begin to melt your heart toward your bolster. So you can drop your head between your elbows. That might mean you need to walk your knees back in space so that the hips stay over the knees, but just opening up the lats equally using that length that we've created on both sides of the body, the space around the thoracic spine. Keep drawing your belly button up towards your spine. Variation here on puppy pose. Take 3 more rounds of breath. Keep pressing the elbows into the bolster, hugging them in toward one another, melting the heart toward the floor, shoulder blades down the back, but belly button drawing in. As you inhale, slowly begin to unwind and then make your way to Shavasana. So again, setting your props aside, Coming onto your back, any position that feels good. Find the neutrality of your pelvis right to left. Maybe internally and externally rotate the legs from the femur. Maybe roll the shoulder blades down the back. And take these next few moments here just to absorb the changes from your practice. Keep your body still, but simply just deepen the breath. Allow this vibrant energy through your breath to light up your whole system. Send this prana down to movements of your fingers and your toes. And maybe all the way out into a nice deep stretch, like you were waking up all over again. Actually drawing your knees in toward your chest, maybe rocking a little side to side. Maybe even taking another round of happy baby here, or extending the legs out into a V. Maybe moving the knees around in some circles. But when you're ready, slowly roll over to one side and make your way back up to a seat. As your spine becomes upright, once again, notice the changes of your practice. The level of your physical body or the mental body, the emotional body, or even your spiritual body. Bring your hands to your heart center, bow your gaze, thanking yourself for this time you've carved out, opening up the awareness of the changes you've made, the new person that you are, and how this openness of body and heart can greatly impact and profoundly change the quality of your interactions. Thanks for sharing your practice with me today. Namaste.